Chris Merrill. I'm the Executive Director of the Equality State Policy Center. And I'm here today to speak in support of this great little bill. The Equality State Policy Center's mission is to ensure transparent government, fair elections, and thriving communities in Wyoming. And so we see a bill like this one as squarely in the heart of our mission, because the intent behind this legislation and laws like it in other states is simply to uphold the spirit of the United States Constitution, to help ensure that our democracy is as healthy and robust as it can be. And as the founders of this great country understood and wrote about extensively, freedom of the press is one of the essential ingredients of a viable democracy. It's one of the necessary bulwarks against the rise of authoritarianism and the tyranny of the government. And freedom of the press helps ensure the free flow of news and information to the public. As was stated earlier, 40 other states have shield laws for journalists, and several others have case law that protect journalists in similar ways. And the state of Nebraska actually has its shield law written into its state constitution, where it asserts that the people who gather, write, edit, and disseminate information to the public can perform these vital functions only in a free and unfettered atmosphere. Our democracy is best served when journalists are not inhibited from reporting the news directly or indirectly by governmental restraint or sanction imposed by governmental process. And our democracy benefits when journalists are encouraged to do their jobs to the utmost, when whistleblowers and other sources are free to remain anonymous, and when the public is fully informed by a free flow of information. This law before you today is meant to prevent the government from compelling journalists to disclose the sources of their information. And, this empowers journalists to report important information about the government and powerful industries and corporations, for example, especially information that those entities might prefer the public not know about, such as fraud and malfeasance. And they could report this news without fear of the government or anybody else going after their sources. So this is not an abstract legal argument, Mr. Chairman. It's this legislation you're considering today has immediate real-world implications, as we just heard. And there are dozens of documented cases of American journalists being subpoenaed in recent years in attempts to compel them to disclose their sources. So that's why 40 of the 50 states already have passed a shield law like this one, and why Wyoming should join that effort. As far as amendments, along the lines as have been discussed so far today, I would just say an amended version of this shield law is certainly a whole lot better than no shield law in Wyoming. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I respectfully ask for your aye vote on this bill, and I'll conclude my testimony. And I'm happy to try to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Merrill. Committee, do you have questions for Mr. Merrill? Well, I do, Mr. Merrill. Then someone's got to have some knowledge of these 40 other states. I mean, it is compelling. Don't get me wrong. I think it's very compelling when you say Wyoming is the only state without a shield law. I'm there. I'm tracking you. I get that. We're on an island, probably a dangerous island as such, although I'm confused by the map that has Hawaii as an island and as an island without a shield law. However, so my question though is, with these other 48, 49 states, is it 49? Representative Zwanitzer? Or have we it's 48, okay. Representative Zwanitzer, have we confirmed Hawaii?
Hawaii did have a shield law, Mr. Chairman. They originally, when they passed it, had a sunset provision, so it sunsetted in 2015.
Aha, okay. So Hawaii was almost there.
They were there for several decades, Mr. Chairman, and when the sunset provision came up, they had a lengthy discussion on who was and who was not a journalist, and it failed to be extended.
Okay. All right. So out of all the other states that have something in place for the shield light, someone's got to help me understand what the nuanced difference is between these states. because I believe that the difference is the exceptions, the exception that I'm talking about, the government's interest in protecting the public. And that's going to be the difference between all the states. And that's going to be the difference in the case law. Because the case law is going to carve out what that exception is and what it means. And whether Wyoming passes an absolute privilege or it has an exception, and what do those exceptions look like? To me, that's more meaningful when you want to talk about the other states. We're already there. Yeah, we're the only one that got it, but help someone, and Mr. Merrill, maybe you have that information, but help us understand what those exceptions are in those other states.
Mr. Chairman, I wish I was better prepared for that question. You know, last year, I actually did research this, and I would have probably been able to say off the top of my head. What I can tell you is there are states with the absolute privilege provision that you're talking about, and to my knowledge, those are Oregon, West Virginia, Nevada, Arizona, Montana, and Nebraska. And I guess the question I would have is, I would like to better understand how a journalist protecting their sources, their anonymous sources, would be in the interest of public safety, and if that's a what's the magnitude of that concern, and what about erring on the side of transparency? Is that a better error to make? So these are just questions I have. I'm not answering your question, Mr. Chairman, but it's the best I can do at the moment.
Thank you, Mr. Merrill. And